friends, and welcome back to my channel. My name is David, and I'm here to begin counting down my top 100 books. That is, the top 100 books that I've read as of right now. This is very much subject to change at any moment's notice. I am making 0 changes to the list I have established. I removed 2 today based on reading I did over the weekend and based on further reconsideration on including a couple of books that it's been a very long time since I've read them. I remember enjoying them. I don't remember how much I enjoyed them. And so, in the interest of fairness, I left off a lot of books from my youthful years, back late teens, early 20s, that it's been 15, 20 years since I've revisited. And if I knew for certain on some of these the degree of enjoyment that I had for them, I would put them higher, or I would put them on this list. So that means books like The Hunchback of Notre Dame, not on here. The Phantom of the Opera, not on here. I remember enjoying both of them immensely. Crime and Punishment, not on here. I can't justify putting on these books that I don't remember enough about it to know where it should fall. That also applies to non-classics, things like everything that I read by David Eddings, which was almost everything that guy wrote. I wouldn't even know how to begin putting any of them in here. So I left him off completely. I read all 11 books of the Terry Goodkind Sword of Truth series and enjoyed almost all of them. I recently revisited the first book. I distinctly remember the first 4, 5 books pretty well. And I know that the first and the fourth book were my favorite of those first 5. And so you will see both of those appear on here, but none of the others, because I couldn't justify how to place them. So there are many, many books that I ought to revisit in order to determine whether they should merit a place on this list. So if there's something that you're like, surely you've read this, why isn't it on here? That's probably why. It's either I haven't read it, such as War and Peace, which I'm in the middle of right now, or it's just been so dang long since I've read it that I could not possibly bring myself to put it on here, because it'd either be a disservice to where I put it, or a disservice to everything else because I remember it through rose-colored glasses and it doesn't get the spot where it deserves. There are a lot of things that I read high school years, all those required readings. Lord of the Flies, Great Gatsby, Scarlet Letter. Some of them I remember enjoying more than others. I couldn't tell you where they should go, so they were left off. So, without any further ado, we're going to jump right in. Now, over half of these in this first 10, I don't actually physically own. Either because I have owned them recently and decided to pick up a different version, so I've gotten rid of them, or because I just haven't owned them anytime recently. But it's a safe bet that almost everything on this list will probably become something I would want to own at some point in time. And so we kick off with number 100 here. This is Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson, and you're going to hear me mention a lot on this is kind of a stand-in for the entire trilogy. There are very few series of books where certain books stand out more than others to merit multiple books getting placement on the list. Most of the time it's kind of a package deal, and so you're going to see that reflected here. In addition to, it allows me to put a lot more books on here. But this is a young adult superhero story where the superheroes are corrupted. Getting that kind of power corrupts, ultimately. Every single person that gets a superpower ends up going bad. This is the story of a man named David, very young guy, who believes he has witnessed Steelheart, the ultimate of superheroes, getting hurt. And as a result, just utter decimation happened when he was a child. To basically bury the evidence that he can be hurt. And so this drives him to study, to know so much about all of these epics, as they are called, these superpowered people, in order to try to find out what that weakness was to be able to take down Steelheart. This one is epic. It's incredible. Steelheart is obviously modeled very, very strongly after Superman. And if nothing else, this book right here, the first book in there, is a fun, rollicking ride. All three of them are just fast-paced, they're witty, they've got good humor, just an incredible amount of imagination on what these guys' superpowers are and what their weaknesses are and how all of that plays out. This is just a fun-filled, jam-packed ride. This will not be the last time you hear Brandon Sanderson's name. So, book number 99. We have here The Iliad by Homer. Recently revisited last year, no, 2 years ago, for the very short-lived Eclectic Book Club with Shelley Swearingen. I no longer own a copy of The Iliad, nor the Odyssey, because I decided after reading the Fagles translation for both that was probably not the translation I want to keep. So, at some point in time, probably in the next couple of years, because I do want to revisit both of them, I'm going to seek out a translation that may be a better fit for my shelf. So yeah, incredible epic here. The middle portion of this dragged a little bit. There's a lot of scene setting and setting up things. But the opening sections, as well as just the last third at the very least, maybe even a little bit more than that, are just magnificent, incredibly powerful, and absolutely worth the bit of a slog in the middle that it takes to get to the good parts, the good beats. And I guess it depends on what you prefer to in your epics, so to speak, as to which you're going to prefer. The Iliad is more of a historical based, big names gathering. You know, there are moments of humanity beating through, but it's more about the narrative of this war and the conflict and building up and going on. Whereas the Odyssey, which is the other work by Homer, is more of a personal narrative following one particular person and the encounters that they have in a more fantastical method. You'll just have to wait and see if and where, if it is on here, the Odyssey falls. But for now, number 99, we have the Iliad. Very, very enjoyable read. And while I'm thinking about it, I should just preface here. So just because it's number 99 doesn't mean it's a bad book. I've easily read over 1,000 books. It's probably somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 at a very conservative estimate here. So, you know, saying that it's number 99, well, it's still in the top 5 to 10% of books that I've read. Probably even more than that. So that's putting it in perspective. These are great books. Every one of these are ones that would be a fitting entry on the Bookshelf Essentials, which is something I plan to get back to at some point in time. Probably not until after I get through talking about 100 books. So number 98, we have Frankenstein. I grabbed the 1918 text here, but it's been a while since I've read Frankenstein. Not a long time by any means, but I couldn't tell you for sure which text I've read. But I would be interested in the near future to reread Frankenstein, both versions. It's a great story of exploration of what is humanity, almost self-reflection that it makes you face as it encounters the actions and reactions of Frankenstein's monster and people around the monster and how it goes about. Yeah, it's incredibly powerful. It needs no introduction because you probably all know Frankenstein. It's magnificent. And with a reread soon, it probably would bump up. I know for certain it belongs on this list. Unfortunately, its common counterpart, Dracula, it's been too long. So you won't find Dracula on this list. Alright, so next we have one that I can actually hold up. Hey! We have Snow Crash by Neal Stephenson. This is cyberpunk. It is bizarre. It is hard to follow at times. But it is a rollicking experience here. Following hero protagonist, which is one of the coolest names for a hero or a protagonist in a book for a main character. Going about and delivering pizzas at the beginning of the book and seeing how that all just kind of snowballs into a whole bunch of action and adventure and intrigue going on, layers and layers of depth to explore in here that is going to be enjoyed more and more with each revisiting to this. I read this just last year, and already I'm excited to get back into it and give it another reread. I don't know that it'll ever be in the top tier of favorites, but it will always, I can almost confidently say, it will always have a very solid founding somewhere within my top tier of books that I've read. Because it just has rich, big ideas that are explored in a way that very few books are able to do it effectively. Alright, so now we have number 96. This is, pardon the cover. So I originally was going to put just poems of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, but I went and looked, and so this is the Ballads and Other Poems, which is one of his publications, and it's got 4 ballads in here: The Skeleton in Armor, which is excellent, The Wreck of Hesperus, which is great, The Luck of Edenhall, and The Elected Knight, both of which are fantastic. It's got The Children of the Lord's Supper, and then it's got some miscellaneous poems in here, including The Village Blacksmith, which I love, Dimnion, which is also excellent. Yeah, it's just got some really strong poetry from Longfellow's career, kind of earlier in his career. But that doesn't mean that they're any less worth reading. Longfellow as a poet is one that I'm still very early in exploring, but already I can tell that he is going to be one of my favorites. He's one of several poets that makes an appearance on this list and is absolutely worth the time to read. His poetry evokes some really strong imagery. He's got poems that are strongly inspired by Norse and Finnish mythology and folklore, which makes it all the more reason why I enjoy some of those things. And if you haven't read anything by Longfellow, you owe it to yourself to go and give him a chance. Check it out and see if it is something that you too can enjoy. And that is the volume that I would recommend that you pick up. Or if you have a collected work, sometimes they have them separated out by where they appeared in a collection. So next we have A Tolkien Miscellany by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is an unusual pick to put in here, and I understand that. It did make an appearance for my Bookshelf Essentials, with really good reason here, because it has everything that you would want. It's got Smith of Wootton Major, it's got Farmer Giles of Ham, it's got Leaf by Niggle in here. All three of those are phenomenal short stories by Tolkien. It's got The Adventures of Tom Bombadil, so you've got poetry of Tolkien in here. It's got an essay on fairy stories in here. And to round it out and make it even better than it already is, it's got his translations of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, Pearl, and Sir Orfeo. This makes it a massive volume of just excellent things to enjoy by Tolkien that have nothing to do at all with Middle-earth, other than some loose connections with his poems from The Adventures of Tom Bombadil. If you're a Tolkien fan and you haven't read some or all of those, I can strongly, wholeheartedly recommend. Everything in this volume is among my favorite things to read. And this is it. This is a reference that I'm going to turn back to time and time again, because I've read all of them multiple times, and I plan to reread all of them many more times over the years. Alright, so number 94, I believe we're on. I'm holding up this big monster. I'm only halfway through the Great Book of Amber. But in here, Book 5 in particular, The Courts of Chaos by Roger Zelazny, is what stands in for the rest of the Amber books here. So you won't find any more Amber on here. Books 1, 2, and 5 are the best of the first 5. 3 and 4 were good, but not as stand out as the first 2 or the 5th book. And the 5th book just blew me away. And I don't want to talk too much in depth about the 5th book because it's definitely capable of spoilers. But it is following a family almost who are royalty in the world of Amber. But this family is not a very good family. They are very broken. There are lots of alliances and betrayals. There is deception going on all the time. You don't know who to trust. You don't know who is aligned with who, or who's going to come through to help each other. Because at times that familial bond holds really strong and lets them get through things. And other times they're kind of jerks to each other. And all of those layers of intrigues and plots and character development that built up for those first 4 books paid off magnificently in Book 5. So if you have not read anything of the Chronicles of Amber, give the first book a shot. That is The Nine Princes of Amber. If it hooks you like it did me, you'll have no problem wanting to read the next ones. I'm far overdue to get back into the world of Amber for the second half of this wonderful book. All right. So at number 93, we have Middlemarch by George Eliot. Victorian literature. I don't talk Victorian literature very often. I don't actively read Victorian literature very often anymore. And that's not because it's bad stuff. It's just because it's not my It's not my wheelhouse, so to speak. It's not my preferred period or my preferred writing style. But I can tell you that Middlemarch is one of the best Victorian pieces of literature I have ever read. It's not the only one that's going to appear on this list, but it is among the standouts that I remember being so intimidated by the length of this. I was in dread of reading this book. It's not a small book. The Victorians knew how to write a long epic. It's probably where today's modern fantasy writers learned how to do it. They looked and said, "Oh, hey, yeah, people will, gobble up 800, 900, 12,000 or 1,200 page books. We should do this." That's part of why I don't delve often into the Victorian literature, because they are long and they tend to be more centered around relationships and courtly affairs and things of that nature. But every once in a while you run across one that is just done so well, you can't help but sit up and take notice. Middlemarch was that for me. I devoured the book. It's been 10 years since I've read the book, and I still distinctly remember just how much I enjoyed it. And I'm far overdue for a reread. So we have 2 more to go here. Can I get my Kindle up for one more? So this is The City in the City by China Miéville. I'm probably butchering the name completely. This is kind of a sci-fi detective noir sort of hybrid that was unlike anything that I had known to expect going into it. It is an unusual blend of genres here. And it is a world where there are 2 cities and their world overlap. And people in each of these cities have been trained to not see people in that other city as they're passing by. So that it's almost a surrealish kind of you're there but not there sort of world. There are moments where they kind of overlap and you're able to see, and they wear distinct colors. So you're able to tell, okay, this person's wearing beige, so I shouldn't be looking at them. And that snap judgment of, okay, yeah, no, I'm not seeing them, plays into this mystery where someone from the other city has been murdered and found. And so that leads this detective on a rolling course of investigation and intrigue, trying to figure out not only what happened, but to navigate through the environment within these 2 cities and being able to talk to people and interact in ways that actually can get information rather than the rote, oh no, I didn't see them, because they've been trained since birth that they shouldn't see them. And even if they do see them and notice them, they shouldn't say that they have seen them, because confessing to that is not good. I have not read anything else by Miéville, but I just fully intend to. It was magnificent. I enjoyed every minute of it. And much like Snow Crash, I think it's one that the more I reread that in the future, the more I'm going to enjoy it, because it's just so packed with things in there that it's impossible to catch it all the first time through. So that brings us to 91, which more than anything else on this list already fits really well with that concept of the more you revisit it, the more you're going to pick up from it, because it's not something that you can just read once and walk away saying, okay, yeah, no, I understand everything that happened here. You're not going to. You're just not. No matter how smart you are, there is so much packed in to Paradise Lost by John Milton. I was lucky enough to pick up about a year ago for $1. This annotated edition of it. And to give you an idea, so here's the lines of text. Here's the notes for those lines of text. Lines of text. Notes for those lines of text. There's a reason why this poem needs that. I mean, granted, not every page is quite as bad, but there is so much annotation and referencing going on in here that you need something like this to really be able to grapple with a lot of the stuff going on in here. It is epic poetry at some of its finest. Bill is a very well-known name for very good reason. It's not an easy text to read. Even without the notes, it's not going to be an easy read, but it is absolutely 100% worth the time. And is 110% in the camp of, I need to reread this soon because I'm far overdue. And I am ready and willing to grapple with Milton again because it's going to be one I'm going to want to grapple with time and time again because it is just absolutely fantastic. So there you go. There's my first 10. So numbers 91 through 100 on my top 100 books. As of right now, here in end of April 2024. We'll see how this goes. I'm excited to share all of them. You know, there's going to be fewer surprises the higher up we get. You know, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you can probably predict a fair number of the top 10. But it's everything in between. That it shows kind of, you know, the different sorts of things that shape a reader. And hopefully you'll find that there's quite a varied taste along the way. Anyway, I've gone on long enough. I'm far overdue for some other things. I will catch you later. Thank you, BookTube.